Hello to our audience out there this Sunday morning. Welcome to another The Awakening podcast series, especially during our current situation. We're so thankful that we have this platform to continue speaking these types of awakening and ascension messages. Today, we're very excited. We have Jay Layton with us. Jay is a metaphysicist, an author, spiritual coach, an NLP practitioner. He's also president on the board of directors of the Masters Octave nonprofit and the creator of the Soul's Dream online courses. Jay's quest for the answers to the age-old questions, who are we? Where do we come from? Started with him at a very young age. His curiosity led him to study meditation, dreams, astral travel, channeling, and hypnotherapy. Jay has published 2 books, I Am Understanding Who and What You Are, Volume 1. This book is a compilation of his first year of channelings, which was in 2006. A short time later, Jay's second publication, The Quick Guide to Oneness, was printed. In 2019, Jay released The Soul's Dream, which is an online course that is designed to awaken you to who you really are and why you are really here. There couldn't be a more important question to ask during this time right now. So I'm going to turn it over to Keith. And Keith, do you have any questions for Jay?
Well, first I want to welcome you, Jay, and it's a pleasure to have you with us. And I always love to meet men who are conscious and who have dedicated and been groomed and seasoned and trained to follow their soul's path. So we'll touch into in a moment your more high level frequency understandings. But I always love to hear, how did you get here? When you were a kid, I don't know where you were raised, what were some of the formative experiences that focused you to step into the teaching and the life and the embodiment that you are now living? How'd you get here, man?
Yeah, so it all started with my mother. She was part of a group at the Masters Octave. It was a house in Keyport. The gentleman who owned it was named Ted Miller, and he opened it up, and people came in every week, and they had channeled sessions and group sessions. And my mom would come home, and she'd share some information with me. And at the time, I was like 15, 16. I'd be like, "Mom, get out of here with this nonsense. You're crazy. That's too much. Get out of here." And then when I turned 18, or actually I was 17, she introduced me to Ted, and Ted and I just hit it off. Like we were became best friends. He was 60 when I met him, and I was 17. So he had a lot of years on me. So he became my mentor. And for 10 years, he mentored me, and I grew very, very quickly. He's like, read this, look at this. And I started coming to the sessions, and I was so intrigued by channeling. And then I'm like, I can do that. It's easy. So then I started doing it outside with my ducks, right? I have a nice little lake in my backyard, and I had there's always geese and ducks. And I'd sit there and I'd meditate, and I'd just let the energy come through me, and I just preach to the ducks. And then once I got comfortable with the energy coming through me, I started doing it at the group. And then I became the main channeler for 4 years. I started channeling Ascendant Masters, that whole group. And then I came to the realization that everything states I am. Every being, everything states I am, and it's the awareness of self. So then I started working on just channeling I am. And then I come out of a channeling, and people be like, who was that? That was awesome. I was like, it's I am. Everything that ever came through me from that point on was always I am, because it didn't need a name. It's just information. So that's why I created the book, I Am, Understanding Who and What You Are. And it's all about us tapping into our higher selves, because once you go up into the higher levels, we're all one. And that's where oneness really comes from. When you break down consciousness, it all goes to a universal consciousness that we're all attached to. Although we have our own individuality, identity here, we're all one. And so it was through my mother, really, that really got me started and diving into the understanding of who and what I am. And then I just couldn't wait to share it. Like when I get a download, I'm like, I got to share this information. This is amazing. So anyone who would listen, then I'd share it. But now I tend to hold back a lot from what I get. And I examine it in my life and how I can apply it. Because I like information that you can use, not just information just for your mind. I want information that's practical, that you can use in your daily lives and create change in your lives. And that's what I'm about now.
So thank you for sharing your background. That's very fascinating how at a very young age you were, placed in an environment that was that led you to where we are today. I think a lot of us that are here today make the statement, I've worked my whole life for this. I've prepared for decades, read, all the books, listened to the Ascended Masters. So I forgot to mention that the name of this podcast series is Ascension and the Mass Awakening. So as we, each one of us now here really activated into our mission, I want to ask you, what does awakening mean to you, especially in our current event, the shift, awakening taking place right before our eyes right now? I'm not sure any of us, even the ancients, the prophecies that described what this event or this shift or this ascension or the harvest or whatever you want to call it was going to in detail look like. But we don't have to go far to look at the detail taking place right now. So what does awakening during this particular global event that is taking place, what does that look like to you?
Yeah, so there's two levels to that awakening. There's a collective awakening where as a group we're kind of getting into some information where we're awakening, and then there's the individual awakening. So I'll start with the collective awakening. What's coming to play now, it's going to be a lot of uncovering of all the information from our past that we have long forgotten. So if we look at the pyramids, for instance, we can't build the pyramids today with the technology that we have, and yet there they stand, right? And we think that today we have the most advanced civilization, which we're starting to wake up to understand what that advanced civilization was really about. So what's happening is we're not attaining something, we're going to start remembering something, because we have taken this 13,000 years of descending, meaning we come from a very, very high state in consciousness, and we descend in consciousness so that we can forget who we are to have a full-on experience in this reality that's based on vibration. It's based on polarity, which is good, bad, right, wrong, male, female. And we come in, we have many different lives inside of this matrix that we're in. And the awakening now that's happening is we are starting to remember our gifts and our talents. And once we start uncovering all the stuff that we have forgotten, it's going to shift us into a very heightened state of consciousness. And what that means, it's not like you're going to become someone else. You're just going to be able to receive much more data. So if you look at the way that we speak to each other, we use a dialect with our mouths. It's a very slow way to communicate an idea. Whereas when we use telepathy, it's instant. I can give you a full idea and you get the whole entire idea, where now I have to explain it to you in so many different ways with words and vibrations coming from my mouth for you to understand what I'm saying. It's a very slow way to receive data, information. So what's happening is, as we start to awaken, these other senses that we have that have been dormant for a very long time are going to start to come back online. So as a collective, what's going to happen is going to be a lot of uncovering of all the stuff that's been going on behind the scenes. We're seeing that happen now, all in the news, everything that's happening, all this stuff starting to come to a head. The old paradigm is breaking down. We can't move into the new paradigm with the old paradigm still in place. It just doesn't work. We can't have a money system and be able to instantaneously manifest at the same time. What would be the purpose, right? So as we're moving into our true abilities to manifest and harness our God-given abilities with understanding how to use our minds properly and our heart vibrations properly, we're not going to need the old paradigm, but it has to break down. And unfortunately, it might be uncomfortable for some people. That's good, because uncomfortableness pushes us. Like we get kind of, even if, you don't like your job, it's paying your bills and you're just going along with it because, you're getting by. It's okay. Everything is, status quo. But you have a deeper purpose inside of you. A lot of people, like they just don't like the job because they know they have something greater inside of them they can be sharing with humanity and with themselves. But they stay with the status quo because it's comfortable. So what's happening now is we're having this whole upheaval from the foundation breaking down, where it's making people uncomfortable. And it really pushes us to look outside of what we have been doing.
So
And
stepping into more of an internal, coming back to, you say remembering, I'll say re-membering. That's coming back to the memory of our multidimensionality and the understanding that in our divinity, that we are that power to manifest, instead of relying on our external reality of material things. We're being forced to ask ourselves, where does our reality truly reside? And it's not external, it is internal. And so we're being kind of forced to shatter the external reality and causing every individual. I mean, who could have imagined that every human being on a world system would be touched and caused to come to a crossroad that would call them to make a choice? I mean, I don't know that I could have dreamed or written the best book ever sold or published about what kind of situation would that be. I mean, we've had wars, we've had 9/11, we've had stock market crash in 2008, then we went through the blood moons in 14 and 15, and we've talked about the end of days or this awakening period for so long. And yet here we actually are, where every individual on the planet is going to come to that crossroad and actually be asked those questions that you are asking. Who am I? What am I? What is my mission? What is the cause of my supply? Where does that come from? And what is my power to manifest those things that I know that I can? So
when you spoke of tools, and I don't know if that's a guy thing, Jay. You love practical. I'm all about tools of consciousness, because we need tangible, tactile, relatively speaking, pathways to shift consciousness, to just how we feel, and to shift how we act. What are some of those tools that over the course of your life you've refined and defined as essential to your day in, day out life process? Thank you.
The number one tool is understanding that this is like the greatest secret in the world right here. You become what you think about. Now that is so, so important to understand, because where you put your thoughts, where you put your intention, is what manifests in our reality. When we say I am, and whatever we put after that becomes our reality. So some of the tools that I dove into was first meditation. Meditation was the number one thing that got me connected and centered to be in line with my higher self. And then the second one was understanding the vibrational frequencies of our brain, so that we have these states called theta and alpha, that they're measurable when you have an EKG. And so when you move into those states of brain waves, you can really start manifesting your reality extremely quick.
Great.
Well, that takes us into understanding that we are energy, and that energy flows through thought, and that thought builds the reality that we think. these are the basics, the fundaments of this this creating this new reality. Jay, we're going to take a break. Thank you. This is just such pertinent information for this time. We'll be back in just a moment. Thank you. Welcome back to everyone here, and thank you for continuing to listen as we drill down into what is currently taking place on a global level, and how we maneuver through this through the new highway, the new thinking, creating a new time and a new space to create the new energetic structure for New Earth. We're talking about what it means to awaken. We've got Jay Layton. So Jay, I want to continue with that, but I'm very interested also, as we are aware that the planet is going through an awakening. You talked about not only awakening on a collective level, but the obviously the essential of pulling that down to the individual, so that the individual is not looking externally at what is going on out there, but that we're enabling the individual to look internally what is going on inside of each human being. I would like to talk about that a little more, but then I want to get into talking about, how do you know that we're in an ascension? What are some of those signs? So I'm going to open it up, back up to you.
Yeah, so some of those tools I was talking about was getting into that alpha and theta state. But this is the most important thing for someone to understand right now, is that it's not about the external world. It's all about moving into the internal world, because how you control your internal world reflects, it's a mirror to what your outside world is going to become and be. So what's happening now is a lot of fear. A lot of fear is going on. People are uncertain on what's happening financially, physically, emotionally. There's so much going on right now, so much change happening in our world right now with this this virus that's going around and collapsing of so many different things. But what each individual has to do right now is turn that off and stay calm within. It's all about staying in a state of meditation. Meditation means middle. It's not just about going and lying down and going off into another dimension. It's about being present in the day. When you're walking, you're in a state of meditation, right? So when you stay in that state of meditation, what you're doing, if you look at your cellular biology, is you're actually keeping your cells in a state of growth and harmony. And when we move into a state of fear, we move into a state called fight or flight. When you move into fight or flight, what happens is your cells can either be in growth or protection. So think about that, either growth or protection. That's it, 2 different states. When they move into a state of growth, they can rejuvenate, regenerate, and heal very easily. When they're in protection, they cannot do any healing, no rejuvenation. They just die off. When they start to die off, the body starts getting dis-ease, a vibrational frequency that's lower than homeostasis, which is perfection. So what happens is when we move into a state of fear, it's good for the moment of getting out of the way of something. You know, there's a car coming. You don't want to sit there and critically think, oh, do I have to get out of the way? No, you want to get out of the way. So you want your body to react instantly to that experience. So fight or flight is very, very good for certain things. But if you continuously keep your mind in a state of fear, you're continuously keeping your body in a state of fight or flight, shutting down your body's ability to heal. So the idea is to always keep your mind occupied on the things that you love, the things you desire, the things that you want to create in your life. And when you do this, you keep a high vibration, a frequency inside of your body that remains at homeostasis and keeps everything in line inside of you, no matter what's going on outside of you. Your cells cannot see the outside world. You have 50 trillion cells and they cannot see the outside world. They only understand what's happening out here through your 6 senses. It's through these 6 senses that allows your biology and your chemistry to change inside of you. So even when you look at a bill and your heart starts to race because you're seeing a bill and you have to get that bill paid, you're moving into a state of fight or flight. So what you want to do is you want to as much as possible, keep your mind occupied on the things that you love, the things that you desire, be it a person, be it a thing. What is it that makes you happy? And put your attention there right now, because that's going to help you keep your body in a good space for if this disease, this virus does come into your household. You don't want to have your system compromised where all your cells are shutting down because they're in a state of protection weeks and weeks and weeks in advance because you were in a state of fear. What you want to do is you want, if that virus comes into your house, believe and hold to the highest that your body knows exactly what to do. And since the last, week or two coming up before you got disease, you were in a very high state of vibrational frequency. So when you get it, your body just gets rid of it very quickly. That's what it does. The body is an amazing, amazing tool for this reality. And every single frequency runs through it.
And
All
so,
frequencies run through it.
and so, for me, the word has just come so alive, when it talks about the narrow way. There's many ways that we have defined that previously, but clearly the narrow way right now is in, are you choosing peace or are you choosing panic? Are you choosing love or are you choosing lack? There's never been a more sacred time, a more serious time as New Earth is being laid into our energetic grids, and a new timeline has been presented, a new space. So you're either in the old timeline and the old space, or you're in the new timeline and the new space, which means that when you're thinking of fear, lack, scarcity, panic, all of those negative, lower vibrational thoughts that you're talking about, or you're thinking in the love, peace, harmony, all is well, I do have access to unlimited supply. Those are the two worlds that are being presented right now. And like you said, that being in a meditative state, it is about being there, not just in the morning when you meditate or in the evening before you go to bed. It is about building and developing the habit of beingness that is here now, always. And so this is, I think, drilling into the importance of your thought. And so I asked the audience, what are you thinking? It says hold every thought captive. There's a reason for that right now. We are to hold our thoughts captive and watch them. Are you choosing peace, or are you allowing this fear, this panic, this external circus that has been ramped up for the purpose of the drawing, individuals to choose? The question is, which path are you choosing? Keith, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I'd like to hear from Jay on this. You're a seasoned meditator. You've been doing this a long time. You were raised in a current with your mother. Thank you for sharing that. So when you speak of meditation, that's pretty generic. And meditating since I was 13 as well, I have a pretty deep repertoire. For me, it's the breath. For me, it's the heart space. What's your primary go-to style or system or technique or method that you come into present moment consciousness, Jay?
Well, breath is by far the best, right? Because anytime you want to get centered, you're always breathing. You're never not breathing. So it's always a great spot to direct your attention to get into the moment. So it always starts with the breath. And when you look at the conscious and the subconscious mind, our body is the subconscious mind, right? Now we can take our conscious mind and put it on a subconscious process. But once we do that, we become aware of it. So breathing is subconscious. We don't think about breathing. It's not a conscious function that we use. But when we put our conscious mind on the breath, where does it bring us? It brings us internal. It brings us inside. And to get to the higher realities, you have to go internal to get to the higher realities, because we only see in this this small visible light spectrum. It's a very, very tiny sliver inside of the whole electromagnetic spectrum. So for me, meditation, when you go internal, starting with the breath, it's so important because it allows you to see so much more that is around us that we can tap into to bring into this physical reality, this visible light spectrum reality, and express and experience. So for me, I like breath is definitely the number one thing. But what I do now through my spiritual coaching is I don't heal people. I show people how to heal because it's all going within. So once you look at someone's disease, right, and you go into their higher self. So I use NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming, to figure out through their higher self what the problem is. And it's so interesting to me to see that even physical ailments that we have inside of our bodies that we've had for a very long time, 99.9% of it is caused by an emotional trauma that happened to us when we were younger. That when that emotion wasn't able to be expressed, what did it do? It attached to something, attached to an organ, or attached to something inside of us, and then it became a solid. And then when it became a solid, it then caused that dis-ease in that spot. So it's interesting when you go in through using hypnosis or NLP, you can figure out exactly when they got that issue because the subconscious is always recording. And then once you understand where that was, you can basically get rid of it, right? Through their own practice, their own mind. And it's all them, through their mind, doing the meditation and visualizing that's creating this space for this emotional trauma to break up. And then once that energy can flow freely, guess what happens? The trauma or the disease goes away very easily. And it doesn't matter what it is. If it's, if it's a trauma that happened in your mind that when you were, maybe you were abused when you were a child, and that could have had many stipulations growing up later on. It's just a vibrational frequency. And once you remove that vibrational frequency yourself by going internal and really recognizing and going through the process, you can get rid of anything and you can bring in anything into our lives.
So meditation, of course, NLP, higher self. Do you work with guides, angels? Do you advocate prayer? Do you advocate going to a higher register in our own consciousness grid to draw on that when you work with people? What I'm hearing you say, and I completely agree, it's to empower and people to empower themselves, that they become the healer of their lives. Do you work with higher forces? Do you recommend, do you steer people to work in those ways?
Yeah. Like I said before with I Am, when I was channeling other beings and then I got into I Am, I understood the connection between all things are one. And once that connection is made, once you have that connection and understanding that we all are truly one, we don't have to consciously think about tapping into something that's already part of us. So for me, I don't really focus too much on angelic realms or ascendant masters or pulling in anything other than the person themselves, because I understand that you have the same connection as Jesus. You have the same connection as Saint Germain, and that energy isn't separated. When you look at quantum physics and you look at entanglement, right? When two particles are entangled, you can never untangle them, no matter the distance between, you can take them and go across the universe. You tickle one, the other one feels it. So we're all entangled. So that energy is always there. And it really doesn't, for me, I don't believe that we need to focus on bringing in higher energy, because you are that higher energy. You just have to turn it on within you by tapping in and just connecting to it. And it's like this massive downloads just come into people.
Again, you're a seasoned soul. And I'm thinking about people who are coming onto the show who don't have the background or the wherewithal. And not to pull you off of your message or your line. I'm just curious how other people, because I Am is as vast and as simple as it gets. And I know a lot of people can't quite wrap around that. So just curious.
Yes. Yeah. For me, so when I work with people too, sometimes you bring in like angels, and some people aren't like, they don't understand the angelic energies or the ascendant master's energy, but they understand their own traumas and their own experiences. And they understand that, oh, wait a second, I can go in there and rearrange my thoughts, that rearrange the experience.
Okay, so we're going to take another break. Thank you, Jay. And we will return in just a moment for the Ascension and the Mass Awakening podcast series. Thank you. Welcome back to the podcast series where we're talking about the Mass Awakening and Ascension. Thank you for hanging tight with us, for continuing to listen. I think these messages are really important right now. Jay, I would like to spend a little time and ask you a question. How do you know that we are ascending?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's actually pretty easy. If you look at what ascension is, right? And what we're talking about is energy. So we're not talking about the physical form in ascension. We're talking about an ascension in energy. And we're talking about how much data, information we can attain and receive right now. So if you were to look at somebody, say in the 1700s, right? And you were to put yourself from today and put you right back into the 1700s, most people would go insanely out of their minds. They'd be so bored because they're so used to the stimuli of all the data from the television, from their phones, from the games, from everything that's around us, all this stimulation. The stimulation is data. And then you put yourself in the 1700s, you would be like, oh man, this is kind of like, I can't go very far because I need a horse to get across town. It's just, you're very, very limited. And then you take someone from the 1700s and put them in our time and say, hey, check this phone out. They'd be like, what in the world is that? They'd be so overwhelmed. They'd be like, to shut down. I just need time to process. It's too much information for me. And what that is showing is that we are ascending. Look at the Industrial Revolution, what that did for us in technology boom, right? So we can see that we're riding around horse and buggy, and all of a sudden we get these cars coming in, and all of a sudden here we are in 1980 getting this computer, and then boom, worldwide we had this thing called the Ethernet. What's ether? Ether is spirit. So what's happening is, as a collective consciousness, we're still using mechanisms, computers, televisions to communicate. These are only to assist us to get to the next level of telepathy and beyond that. So what we're using spirit, ether, Ethernet to communicate globally in a collective consciousness. You can take your phone and you can call someone instantly around any part of the world, or you can search for anything you want anywhere around the world. My son can play a video game at an incredible refresh rate, and then watch YouTube on his phone at the same time and still retain the data that's going through. There's just so much information that he can attain because we are ascending in vibrational frequency, which means our consciousness is raising to the ability that we're able to handle more information. And that's what a higher reality is. As we move into these higher realities, higher dimensions, what we're able to do is attain and see more of the reality that's actually around us. Like I was saying before, the visible light spectrum is 380 nanometers thick or wide. If you think about a piece of paper is 100,000 nanometers thick, one sliver of paper. And here we are, we can only see in this very narrow band of 300 nanometers. There's so much more that's going on beyond our visible spectrum of what we're seeing that we're not taking into account or consideration. But as we raise in these frequencies, these vibrations, we're going to start feeling them. And this veil that's been put in front of us, it's going to open up. So
I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Hawkins' map of consciousness,
no.
how he actually created a tool to measure the vibrations of this particular harmonic universe template of reality. So, you know, you rise up in the scale, you know, shame is at the lowest at a 20, death is the only thing lower than that. And then you rise up into, you know, courage, acceptance, up into unconditional love. And according to Dr. Hawkins, an avatar vibrates at 1,000. And that's the highest that harmonic universe template of reality can go. So angels, you know, are said to vibrate at around 50,000. And that's the difference between worlds is vibration. So a higher, our new world will have an energy grid that vibrates very much differently and higher than this lower dimensional reality. So as the old energy grid falls away, those of us that, you know, have increased in vibration through thought and heart space are creating the energetic, you know, patterns for this new consciousness, this new reality. So what would you say, how does an individual I know for me, it's trusting and letting go and surrendering the old thinking patterns into, um, you know, trusting and surrendering into love. How do you correlate that love vibration with the energy now of ascension?
And I want to piggyback on that to ask again, these tool things, practical. How does behavior change? How is your behavior change? How is it what you do in the world elevates or is a reflection of your elevated state of consciousness? What are the things that how's your behavior been
Yeah.
ramped or touched, Jay?
Yeah. So it's a great, both good questions. Behavior first, number one, it's responsibility, right? So at the end of my course, The Soul's Dream, it's a free course. You can check it out. It's online, thesoulsdream.com. At the end of it, I said, the only responsibility you have is to be responsible with how you respond. So when you respond to stimuli that's happening around you, remember, it's all about your internal reality. It's not about the external reality. The external reality is just giving us images, right? Experience, but it's really about how we handle the experience is what allows our vibrational frequency to raise into other higher realities. So how we respond to what's happening around us allows us to remain conscious. You can't go into the next level of consciousness and not be completely aware of your thoughts and how to control your thoughts and your awareness. So you have to be able to respond to what's happening to the stimuli around you. If you react, you're reacting is coming from instincts. It's coming from old programs that you have running in the background in your mind, your subconscious mind. So what happens is when something happens, a virus comes or something shuts down, how do you internally process something? The external world that's happening around us is predetermined. I mean, everything that's happening outside is predetermined and held together by vibrational frequencies. What's not predetermined is how we experience the experience. And that's where the free will lot comes in. Something is going to happen tomorrow, and you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but it's going to happen. But it's how you respond is what creates enlightenment. And it's through the enlightenment that allows your vibrational frequency, your center, to raise to allow you to move into higher realities. So when you look at parallel timelines or alternate universes, they all exist here and now. Every single vibrational frequency exists here and now. And it's only when you attune to that vibrational frequency through your heart center are you able to become a match vibration to that experience.
So again, how have you changed? How is your day-to-day with your kid, your child, your friends? Are you sweeter, kinder, more funny, more trusting? What are the kind of the hard copy shifts in your behavior that reflect your elevating consciousness arc?
Well, kindness and funny and loving, those are all part of the sequence of light, right? Manifesting around us. But really, for me, what I do is I remain conscious of everything that's happening. Like I think of my thoughts before I'm going to project them out because I remain centered. So it's not so much I adapt to the experience of where I'm at. I'm a very good adapter. And I'm a Sagittarius. So Sagittariuses are, they're mutable, so they become very adaptable. But I can adapt to any situation extremely quickly. But it's not because I'm a happy person or, a lucky person or whatever. I'm just always remaining center. And I'm always in the state of how can this expression be experienced greater and greater and greater. And that's what I'm always focusing on.
All right, so unfortunately, we're going to take another break, and we have Jay Layton with the Master Octaves and the Mass Awakening and Ascension taking place currently. We'll be right back. Thank you. Hello, everyone, on this beautiful Sunday morning. Hope all of you are well. We are with the Awakening podcast series. Jay Layton talking about the current awakening, mass awakening, global awakening taking place, and the ascension period that we are in. Jay, why don't we open it up to a talk on how you correlate the astrology of the times with the events taking place globally?
Yeah, definitely. So first, I just want to say one thing more about the ascension process, about the Schumann-Cavia resonance. I'm not sure if you ever heard of the Schumann-Cavia resonance, but it's a vibrational frequency that has been constant for a very long time, and it just started to shift. And what that is, it's electricity from the ionosphere hitting Earth, creating a vibrational frequency, like a bell-like frequency that runs throughout our whole entire atmosphere. And it's raising. The Schumann-Cavia resonance is raising, which means we're having more lightning strikes, which means there's more energetic energy happening inside of our reality right now. So that just starts it off with the stars in the skies. So what's happening is, if you look at the precession of the equinox or the great year, it's a 25,000 year cycle. Each one of us is a very, 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 very high awareness that comes into this reality, into this universe. This is one verse in the multiverse. This universe is based on vibration. It's based on polarity. So we come in here to understand vibration and to master vibration. So we come in at a very high state, and then we descend down for 13,000 years, and then we ascend back up for 13,000 years. So we come in at the golden age, and then we descend down into the silver, then the bronze, and then the iron. And the reason why they use metals was because it was the density of consciousness. So gold is less dense than silver, bronze, and iron. Iron being the most dense, showing that we're just coming out of the Iron Age, moving into the Bronze Age, showing that the last 13, 14,000 years or 100 years have been extremely dense consciousness. And now we're just starting to shift. 2012 was the marker of the awakening of mankind. So we are now in this ascension phase where we're starting to ascend back up, meaning we're starting to remember and awaken to our true potential. What happened is, as we were descending down, things such as our pineal gland was calcified, meaning our pineal gland is our third eye, and it actually sees beyond the visible light spectrum. It sees into the other realms where you can see angels, you can see Senate masters, but that was shut down so that we can go into this full-on experience of forgetting who we are and have this dense experience. It's a beautiful thing to do. So that happened, and then we come from a 12-stranded DNA, and the DNA got turned down to a 2-stranded DNA. What DNA is antenna that feed off of the energies that are all around us, giving us a greater perception of what's happening around us. So we went from a 12-stranded DNA down to a 2-stranded DNA. As we start to awaken now, those DNA strands are going to turn on. And here's something that's very, very interesting. Dr. Peter Gyayev, he's a Russian scientist. He discovered not too long ago, he had 2 hermetically sealed canisters, one with a frog embryo, one with a salamander embryo. And he took a laser light, a gamma laser, and shined it through the salamander, and then shined the same light into the frog embryo. And guess what happened? The frog embryo's DNA switched and became a salamander. So now we can see that light has the potential to change the DNA structure. What are the stars? Stars are vibrational frequency vortexes of light and sound. So if you Google sounds of the stars, you'll hear the sounds of the stars from NASA. We obviously know that the stars are light, right? You see them twinkling in there. So what's happening is, when you put a constellation together, we have 88 constellations. There's 5,000 visible stars that we can see with our naked eye. When you put 88 constellations, a constellation is a symphony of vibrational frequency that's being projected into our reality. And as these constellations shift in this great year, in the precession of the equinox, it changes the molecular structure and the brain chemistry of the inhabitants within the collective expression called humanity, and the plants and the animals. So now we know that light can change DNA structure. We understand now that we're moving into a thing called the age of Aquarius. When we're moving into the age of Aquarius, what does Aquarius do? It brings in a new phase of technology. It brings in water, which is the water bearer. washing out all the old stuff that's been lying underneath that was hidden, right? Because Pisces is about the secret world, where Aquarius is about bringing all that up to the forefront of our minds and saying, hey, this is what's been going on for a long time, guys, wake up. But it's all about waking up. So we have individually, it's all about staying centered, but collectively the stars are assisting us as they move into positions above us. And it's the angles of the stars, how they play off of each other, right? So when you look at angles in astrology, that's what gives us the experience. It's through these transits in the sky that change our collective experience. So anyone who experiences the full moon, right, in the moon cycle, understands how the moon can raise our energies inside of us. They call people who go crazy lunatics, lunar. It's a lunar cycle. Hospital visits go up. Police calls go up when we move into a full moon because the energy is amplified and it's our emotional energy. We're made up of 80% water, right? The moon pulls on the water. The moon pulls on the tides of the oceans. When this happens, we go into an experience. So the stars play a huge, huge part in shifting the collective consciousness of mankind. And we're just moving into the age of Aquarius. If we're there yet, not sure. No one really knows because our calendars have been so manipulated throughout time. But we can definitely see from the 1800s to now a massive technology boom, which is all about technology, which is all about what Aquarius is about, and an uncovering of all the stuff that's been going on behind the scenes with, you know, the manipulation of the money system all coming to a forefront now. So all this stuff is happening, and it's interesting that we're moving into the age of Aquarius, and the light that's being projected into our reality from the stars and the sound is helping and assisting us to raise in vibration because we're moving into the upswing and the ascension process. So the energy is coming in and it's going to start turning on this DNA that's been turned off, right? So we're going to start moving into a 4-stranded DNA being. Our pineal gland is going to become decalcified. We're able to see into the higher realms, not just by going to sleep at night and not going into our meditations. We'll be able to stay awake and our third eye will be on, and our 2 front eyes that are seeing the physical visible light spectrum will be on as well. So we're moving into this heightened state of consciousness, and the stars are assisting us to do that.
And even though, one second, even though we haven't spoken of the photon belt, which of course is hard science, which is causing the ascension or acceleration, 200, 155 years, there's a quickening that's happening. And of course, the woman that's leading this program couldn't be who she is in her mother's time or grandmother's time. We wouldn't have had a black president 50 years ago. The acceleration is increasing exponentially. One of them, as an argonaut of consciousness as I am, and a meditation fanatic, one of the things that I've been playing with, Jay, and perhaps you as well, is breathing directly not only from our sun, Helios and Vesta, but from the central sun, Alcyon, the center of the galaxy, breathing directly those gamma waves into consciousness as I root through my soul star into the earth beneath me to better ground and better assimilate, but to consciously avail my field, consciously, to receive, to be boosted, to be fed, and to be evolved by these currents that you're speaking of that are flooding the planet exponentially.
Yeah, and I do a meditation that's directly in correlation to that. You have your 7 chakras. Your heart is your center, and then there's 3 chakras above your heart, which is your intellectual, and then 3 chakras below, which are your emotional. And one of the meditations that I do is shooting a beam from my heart all the way down to the center of the earth through my emotional chakras, and then bringing that energy back up, and then shooting it up through my intellectual chakras into the center, and then bringing it down. And then I connect them.
Sorry to interrupt here, but here at our 2-minute warning, what I wanted to do, one of the platform that the Awakening podcast series, a part of our mission is to provide resources and not just information, but actual practitioners who are helping individual humans go through this awakening time and the ascension period. So as part of that resource, Jay, I would like for you to give your personal information so that anyone listening or having an intention or a desire to get through this awakening period might be able to contact you.
Yeah. So Jason or jlayton.com is my spiritual life coaching
How do you spell that?
site. JAYLAYTON.com.
Thank you.
And then thesoulsdream.com. And that's where you can find my course that I created. It's my life's research over the past 20 years that I put into an
Great.
8-lesson course that has everything that I'm talking about. And it's all for free. I believe that it's so important for humanity that I made it absolutely free for everybody.
Beautiful.
And then I have a nonprofit organization where we're creating an online school for bringing in teachers to assist. And that's themastersoctave.org.
Beautiful. Thank you, man.
Well, we certainly thank you, Jay, for giving us your time and your energy, your love, your heart space, your thoughts to what we're all doing, coming together as a team, helping to assist this event taking place. I want to thank our audience for following us all the way through. Let us know what your needs are. We're here to assist you. Namaskar.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
to
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Much love.